Next, an update on military operations against ISIS from Pentagon spokesman Colonel Steve Warren.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. We are pleased today to be joined via dividends from Baghdad by Colonel Steve Warren from Operation Inherent Resolve. Steve, we'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, Pentagon Press Corps. I'll start with some prepared remarks. We've killed some more ISIL leaders, and I want to talk about them. In Iraq, we recently conducted strikes against 3 leaders in ISIL's financial and leadership network. Their removal will degrade ISIL's ability to command and control troops, and it disrupts their ability to finance their efforts. In late November, we killed Abu Salah, the ISIL financial minister. He was one of the most senior and experienced members of ISIL's financial network, and he was a legacy al-Qaeda member. Salah was the 3rd member of the finance network that we have killed in as many months. Killing him and his predecessors exhausts the knowledge and talent needed to coordinate funding within the organization. Also in late November, we killed Abu Mariam, an ISIL enforcer and senior leader of their extortion network. Mariam is the 3rd senior extortionist we have killed recently. This is impairing ISIL's ability to extort money from the civilian population. During another strike in the same time frame, we killed Abu Rahman al-Tunisi. Rahman functioned as a sort of ISIL executive officer, coordinating the transfer of information, people, and weapons. These strikes are an example of how we're able to decimate networks. Next, I'll update you on the tactical actions and the tactical situation in Iraq and Syria. So please, I'll direct you all to the Ramadi Takata map. I've got 3 maps to show you. We'll work through them rapidly. And Davids, if you could pull the map up so I can see it on the screen here. There it is. So this is a map that shows kind of the operational area between Ramadi, which is in the upper left-hand corner of your map, and Taqadum, which is in the very lower right-hand corner of your map. In fact, you can only see the first few words in the lower right-hand corner. So I wanted to see the full operating area. You can see Ramadi in the left there is outlined there on the map. You see kind of in the center of the map a blue line running from the upper right to the lower left. That blue line marks the forward line of troops of the eastern axis. So as you know, we've been attacking Ramadi from all directions of the compass, north, south, east, and west. The eastern axis sits right there along that blue line. And that is primarily, along the eastern axis, it's primarily federal police operating on that axis. So the next map I'd like to show you, go ahead and pull up the next map, is a zoomed-in picture of Ramadi. I'll wait for that map to come up. There it is. Okay, so this is Ramadi proper. What's notable there, obviously up is north, down is south, east.
Steve, can you hear me?
And yeah, I've got you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, Steve. We had a technical problem here with the monitor that I caused. So if we could ask you to just actually start from the beginning with the maps as soon as we get it back up. Yeah, you're the same problem I had. I'm sorry. I was trying to turn the monitor so Tara could see it, and I unplugged it, and so yeah, no, it was all my fault. We're trying to figure out how to get it back. So if you wouldn't mind, just hold for a second. Yeah, right?
No clue where the switch is.
Right? Yeah, let's see it.
Oops, there we lost.
Is it up?
No, it just came up on the other screen.
Can we go to that?
Yeah, let's try that. We got you on a different screen now, Steve. If you can hear us, we've got the satellite map of Ramadi.
Okay, well, we'll start with that map that I'm currently looking at, which is kind of a big picture. You can see the whole river there. And what that is that is kind of the operational area around Ramadi. So to the left, which is the west, you see Ramadi proper. To the right, in the lower right-hand corner, is Taqadum, which you can't even see the whole of Taqadum. You can see the first couple letters there on the screen. It's in the lower right-hand corner of your map, Taqadum. And just off the screen, to the right is where Fallujah is. And of course, you get the lake to the bottom there, and the rest of Anbar province up towards the top of the map. And the only notable mark I made on this map is that blue line that runs from upper right to lower left, about dead center of your screen and a third of the way from the right-hand edge of the map. That blue line marks the forward line of troops of the eastern axis. The eastern axis is primarily made up of federal police, by the way. And as you know, as we've briefed, we are encircling, or we're attacking Ramadi from all four sides, right? From the north, the south, the east, and the west. And it's the police that are moving along that eastern axis, and that is where the police are. Now, for a closer look at Ramadi, let's go to the next map. So here we have a close-up view of Ramadi proper. Up is north, down is south. East is to the right-hand side of your map, and west is to the left. Of note, obviously, the major obstacle here is the Euphrates River, which, as you can see, forks right there kind of in the center of your screen. So what's notable about this? So I'll just point out a few landmarks. Kind of dead center of your map, you see the glass and ceramics factory. Where the river forks, just to the north of that fork, you see the Anbar Operations Center. To give you a sense of scale, the Ops Center and the ceramic and glass factory are about 600 meters apart, so 6 football fields, handful of city blocks. So I just wanted to give you that view of the map. And now I'm going to flip to the last map, which is going to show you what's under whose control. So go ahead and go to the last map. Okay. So this shows you what has been accomplished over the last several days. Other notable landmarks that are not on this map for size, if you look at the Euphrates River, right where it exits the top of the screen there, just a little bit past where it exits the screen is the Palestine Bridge. That, of course, was our notable accomplishment last week. So last week, the Iraqi security forces pressed south from the Palestine Bridge, following the river, until they, 2 days ago, managed to seize and liberate the Anbar Operations Center. To the south, what's most notable, you can kind of see the main highway that cuts across the southern portion of the map here. It looks like Highway 11. To the right, or the east of Highway 11, you have the Tamim neighborhood. That's the largest neighborhood in Ramadi, and Iraqi security forces have seized it. They have secured it. We estimate that there are no longer any enemy operating inside of that neighborhood. However, they are continuing to reduce, mines, obstacles, IEDs that were left behind. And of course, you can see in red there is what the enemy still controls. All right. I think, and I'm going to show you a video here shortly, and it'll be of tanks operating in the Al Tamim neighborhood. So that's that little neighborhood to the south there. Anyway, so that's kind of a roll up of what Ramadi looks like. I expect we'll get some questions, and I want to talk more about it, but I don't want to spend too much time on the opener here. But I do want to say one thing. I sat down, I had breakfast with General McFarland this morning, as a matter of fact, and he reminded me of something that I think is notable, and I hope you will all take note of. So these recent successes in Ramadi come 9 years almost to the day after several soldiers, one an Army captain named Travis Patriquin, a Major Megan McClung, and a specialist Vincent Pamonte were killed by a roadside bomb. Travis Patriquin is important because he was really the heart and soul and the driving force behind the Anbar Awakening in many ways. And in fact, and the reason I bring it up, that Anbar Operations Center, which the Iraqis fought so hard and so long to liberate, was named in Travis's honor by Sheikh Sattar Abu Risha, who, as you know, was a significant player in the Anbar Awakening as well. Then Colonel Sean McFarland said this about Travis, and this is a quote. "He grew to mythical stature among the tribes. After he was killed, and I talked to sheikhs, their eyes would all brim with tears whenever you mentioned his name." So I wanted to remind people of that. We've been here in Iraq for a long time, and we've worked hard. And Colonel McFarland reminded me this morning that there was a photo of Travis hung in that Anbar Operations Center. Don't know if it's still there. Hopefully we'll find out soon. So before I move on to Syria and close out the Ramadi discussion, I do want to share a video with you. And I'm going to set it up. So before it rolls, let me just set it up briefly. And the reason I'm sharing this video is because it shows a significant, we think, a significant milestone in what we're doing here. This is some overhead imagery of Iraqi tanks operating in the Al Tamim neighborhood. And what's important about it is two things, and it's going to be a little hard to see. What you're going to see kind of in the center of the screen after a few seconds, you'll see a flash. That's a tank firing its main gun round. And then a few seconds later, you'll see another flash from a separate tank also firing its main gun round. Those tanks are shooting those gun rounds. They're also, you can't see it on the video, but there's also machine gun fire. They are operating there to protect some armored bulldozers provided by the coalition to the Iraqi security forces. Those armored bulldozers, and you can see it just kind of to the north, just up above of where that tank is firing, you can see the armored bulldozer is building a berm. It's pushing the earth up and sealing off a piece of road with a high berm. The reason that that armored bulldozer is doing that is because it prevents enemy VBIDs, truck bombs, from attacking into the flanks of the Iraqi security forces. Now, this is significant because this is really true combined arms operations. The army that we trained back in the 2000s was really a counterinsurgency army. Counterinsurgency armies have specific tasks that they do. It's about checkpoints. It's about providing security for convoys. It's about reducing the ability of an insurgency to impact friendly forces. What we're fighting now is a more conventional army, or is an enemy that's operating as a conventional army, and they're using much more conventional tactics. And so we've spent the last several months training and equipping the Iraqi army to fight this conventional threat, this conventional enemy. And so we're heartened to see Iraqi security forces conducting these combined arms operations. So, Divids, if you'll play that video, please. Moving over to Syria now. In northern Syria, the Syrian Democratic Forces continued liberating territory held by ISIL. On Monday, the SDF liberated the villages of Al-Khan and Sui, which are south of Al-Hal, and give the SDF a stronger foothold as they move toward Shadadi. During this 5-week campaign of the SDF, they have liberated nearly 1,000 square kilometers and have coordinated with coalition forces for 142 strikes, which have killed, we estimate, approximately 500 enemy and destroyed 143 ISIL fighting positions, 43 vehicles, and 1 checkpoint. Across Iraq and Syria, we believe that we're continuing to achieve some good effects. General Austin, the CENTCOM commander, makes frequent visits to Iraq, and he was here this week. And I want to share with you some comments that he made. And these are direct quotes, and you can use them as such. This is a quote directly from General Austin. He says, quote, "It's worth noting that everywhere we are supporting and enabling operations across Iraq and Syria, the indigenous forces are on the offensive or holding ground that's been retaken from the enemy. We are gaining momentum against ISIL, and I remain confident in our approach and confident that, while it will take time, we will defeat them." End quote. So that's a quote from General Austin. I also think it's worth pointing out how this progress in Iraq and Syria relates to ISIL's expansion in other areas, such as North Africa, Libya, and the Sinai. We know that ISIL will follow the path of least resistance. And as we continue to degrade their capability here in their stronghold of Iraq and Syria, we have to expect and plan for them to try to attempt to gain footholds elsewhere. So with that, I have no more prepared comments, and I look forward to taking your questions.
We'll go to Bob first.
Colonel Warren, in connection with Ramadi, given the proximity to Fallujah, just wondering if you could give us a snapshot of what's happening in Fallujah.
So isolation operations for Fallujah are ongoing. There are several thousand Iraqi security forces maneuvering to encircle Fallujah and begin the process of isolating it and then eventually clearing it. So we're still kind of in the earlier stages of that. Initially, as you know, the mission in and around Fallujah was to block, right, to prevent Fallujah from being able to reinforce ISIL fighters in Ramadi. That has been successful. That's what those federal police are doing, and you saw the blue line in the map there, which indicated the forward line of advance for those federal police. By the way, that blue line, to give you some scale on that map, that blue line was about roughly 4 kilometers away from the center of Ramadi. So Fallujah operations are in their earlier phases. The isolation is beginning to come together.
Yeah. Do those Iraqi forces that are operating in the Fallujah area, are they mostly or partially American trained and equipped forces, or
most? They're not. There are some American trained forces in that Fallujah piece, but a majority of the forces that we've trained and equipped are operating in and around Ramadi.
Joe Tabbitt.
Colonel Warren, this is Joe Tabbitt. I want to go back to your opening statement in regards to those 3 ISIL leaders who were killed. Could you give us more details how they were killed, what kind of operation targeted them? Also, have you tried, has the U.S. military tried to capture them, for example?
In this case, all 3 were killed by airstrikes, and so because it was an air operation, there was no possibility of capturing them. These all took place in Iraq in late November, vicinity of Tal Afar.
Also in Iraq, Colonel Warren, you have mentioned something important. You said that ISIL is acting like a conventional army. Could you give us more details? Do you know why? What are the reasons that ISIL is acting like a conventional army? Do you believe that there are some former Iraqi officers who are fighting with them? Just, I would like to get more details on that if you can.
Well, we know there are former Iraqi officers who are fighting with them. To answer that part of your question, the reason they're operating more like a conventional army is because they have more conventional goals, right? I mean, their stated goal is to create a state, or to create a caliphate, if you will. That's the word they use, which is a very conventional goal, right? They have to take and hold ground, and then they have to govern the people inside of that ground. That can't be done with an insurgency, right? An insurgency has different goals. It's normally to eject someone out of territory. But in this case, their goal is to seize and to hold ground, and to do that requires conventional tactics.
Bashar al-Assad told British Sunday Times that his army is arming the PYD or the YPG forces. Does the U.S. endorse a partner being armed by Assad regime?
I'm not aware of that statement, so I can't speak to it. Our goal here is to focus on ISIL. Right? Our mission here is to work with willing members of this coalition to defeat ISIL, and that's what we're going to do. And anything Assad says, of course, has to be suspect. This is a brutal dictator who is responsible for the deaths of 250,000 of his own people. This is a man who drops barrel bombs on his own population. This is a dictator who has unleashed chemical weapon strikes on his own people. So this is not someone who can be believed in any circumstance.
And one more on Sinjar. There are reports that the Peshmerga forces and the PKK forces and even some local Yazidi forces are fighting over some government buildings in Sinjar, over rising flags on the top of some government buildings in Sinjar. Do you confirm these reports, and do you have anything to share with us what's going on in Sinjar right now?
I cannot confirm those reports. In Sinjar, the Peshmerga forces who liberated that city from ISIL several weeks ago have continued to work on clearing the remaining booby traps, IEDs, and obstacles that ISIL left behind. So that process is ongoing, and we hope that soon more of the original population of Sinjar will be able to come home. And that, of course, is the members of Sinjar who weren't murdered and thrown into mass graves, some of which were actually booby-trapped by these barbarians called ISIL.
Tara.
Hi, Colonel Warren. Go back to the blue line being about 4 kilometers from the city where the federal police are. What's the reason that they're farther away from the city centers? Was it buried IEDs, or what, I guess, is the delay in getting those forces closer into the city center? And then I have a couple more.
Yeah, that's the federal police, so not as well equipped as a conventional army forces, the Iraqi security forces. So they've simply moved slower.
Do they also receive overhead support from U.S. airstrikes?
Yes.
The red zone of Ramadi as a whole, is it still DoD's estimate that there's between 600 and 1,000 ISIS fighters inside that area that need to be taken out?
Now, we killed about 350 of them over the course of the last week, with, using, technically our count is 4 airstrikes, but in reality, each one of those airstrikes has several, targeted engagements in it. So a high number, a high volume of coalition air power applying death and destruction to enemy fighters in Ramadi. So we haven't, I don't have a revised number now. I mean, we're still sort of operating off that 6 to 1,000. But I'll tell you, we've killed quite a few of them. The Iraqi security forces have killed quite a few of them. And that brings me to another good point. What's notable, I think, compared to the 350 that we alone have killed from the air, the Iraqi security forces over the course of the last week have sustained only one friendly killed in action, a single one. And I think that's a testament to the training that they've received. It's a testament to the air power, the close air support that we've been able to provide, and it's a testament to the quality of the equipment that we've provided them. So I think that's notable, the comparative losses in this.
Question: with that amount of ISIS fighters removed from Ramadi, I guess there's maybe half of them are still holding the city. How is that few of a number able to hold a city as large as Ramadi?
Yeah, fair question. So urban combat is difficult, right? It's tricky work. It's because of the way an urban environment is laid out. You've got narrow roads, you've got buildings. ISIL has had a long time to prepare these buildings. They'll knock holes in walls between 2 adjacent buildings so they can move from building to building undetected. We've seen them do things like put sheets up over roads or alleyways so that they can move up and down a road or alleyway without being detected. And of course, they've booby-trapped and mined the city center significantly. So all of those things combined allow a relatively small force to be able to hold off a substantially larger force, indefinitely, frankly. So ISIL is, they've done this, and they've done it fairly well. They've stockpiled. We've seen that they've stockpiled VBIDs. These truck bombs are kind of their version of a precision munition, and what they'll do is they'll use these truck bombs to attack into flanks. So they'll, as the force is moving forward, and of course, only the tip of the spear can move forward because of the lanes created by these buildings and roads. So only a small force can lead. That force will then sometimes encounter an IED or an IED minefield, and they'll need to reduce that minefield. And while they're doing that, the enemy will send a truck bomb into their flanks to try and sow confusion and cause casualties. So all of that, and so the Iraqi security forces then have to prevent that, and you see that in our video where they led with a tank. The tank would provide close-in security while the armored bulldozer would rapidly erect berms, and that then allows more of the force to move in. So it's a slow process, it's a deliberate process, and urban fighting is tough. It's hot, it's scary, and it can be deadly. So this is why a small force is able to hold off a large force for some time. Andrew.
Colonel Warren, hey, Andrew Tillman. Can you tell us if the American troops in Anbar have been providing any kind of on-the-ground, outside-the-wire, accompanying support for the Ramadi operations like we saw in Sinjar a couple of weeks ago? Are they doing any kind of medevac support or, tactical advising from somewhat forward positions?
No, they're not. The American forces are at Taqadum Air Base.
Say why that is? I mean, is that a distinction to be drawn between the Kurdish forces and the Iraqi forces? Is there a reason why our support is a little bit more forward-leaning for the Kurdish forces up north?
It has nothing to do with the forces. It has everything to do with the terrain. So up north, what you have is a very clear front line between the Peshmerga and ISIL. It's a very clean-cut front line of troops. And if you're on one side of that line, you're in good guy country. If you're on the other side of that line, you're in bad guy territory. And if you're on the good guy side of that line, it's safe. I mean, there's not a threat of IEDs, there's not a threat of ambush, there's no snipers. It's safe on the good guy side of the line. Not the case here. Just because of the way ISIL kind of occupied it, it's kind of like you have to think of it as a series of ink spots on that map. And so, the roads aren't really safe. Iraqi security forces take a lot of risk every time they move because the enemy, although largely fighting as a conventional army, let me be perfectly clear, they continue to employ insurgent tactics when it suits them. So, frankly, for force protection reasons, we've decided to keep U.S. forces here in Anbar and other areas around here inside the bases.
Hi, Colonel. This is Tolga Tanis. I had one question on Shaddadi first. You said that there is pressure on Shaddadi as well. It seems that they are using now the routes passing Shaddadi after they lost the Highway 47. How it is significant in terms of their logistical supports and also the oil trucks using this road? What is the strategic importance of Shaddadi?
Well, Shaddadi is really one of ISIL's logistics hubs, right? So they use that as an area to stage weapons, equipment, personnel, and distribute those items throughout the rest of their battlefield. So it's an important hub for that reason. Also, its position along a major highway that moves into Raqqa, controlling Shaddadi will control yet another primary line of communication into Raqqa, which, as we know, is really ISIL's center of gravity inside of Syria. So taking Shaddadi will be the next step in this process to isolate Raqqa.
Are the oil trucks using Shaddadi to cross from Syria to Iraq?
I don't think so. I don't know. That border still needs to have some work done on it. The Iraq-Syria border. We're continuing to work with the Iraqis. This will help. Seizing Shaddadi will certainly help stitch up the border there between Iraq and Syria. It won't be the final brick in the wall, but it will help.
After the November 24th incident, the Russian jet incident, the Turkish officials confirmed that Turkey is not involved anymore with the strikes in Syria. The Turkish jets are not flying on Syria. But still, the CENTCOM reporting that there are some airstrikes in Mare Line as well, where the Turks was focusing on before the incident. What was the impact of this incident to the coalition efforts against ISIL?
Well, we're continuing to fly. We're continuing to conduct our operations. Our operations are ongoing at the vicinity of the Mare Line. That's primarily supporting troops in combat. That's close air support operations there at Mare Line. We're conducting operations in Raqqa, generally to strike their leadership. We continue to conduct operations in Dar ez-Zor to reduce their capacity to earn money through oil. And we're continuing direct support, troop in contact support, close air support to the Syrian Democratic Forces operating between Al-Hol and Shaddadi. So we're continuing to conduct our operations.
Hey, Colonel Lawrence Gordon. Leupold. Just kind of two quick questions. One is Secretary Carter talked about the Southern Front, and these are the leftover teeny guys who are working, I think, in southern Syria, as I understand. I just wonder if you could kind of give us a sense of what they're doing. There's not that much clear about what their operations are and if they amount to anything. Also, I don't know that you could do this, but is there any way that you guys can assess the impact on ISIS's revenue from all this work you guys have been doing with the trucks and the wellheads and all that? I mean, I assume it's too soon, but how would we see an impact there?
Well, in southern Syria, along the Syria-Jordan border, I read out several weeks ago a raid conducted by these new Syrian forces, or the forces that we had trained. It was right there on the tri-border area. I can't recall the name of the town, but it was on that tri-border area, right where Iraq, Syria, and Jordan come together. And there's a little town there that had it was an ISIL outpost, and the forces that we had trained, these Free Syrian Army or New Syrian Army forces, conducted a raid there several weeks ago, and they did two things. One, they moved to set up and attacked using indirect fire mortars in this case that facility, and they were able to direct air power against that facility as well. So a very successful raid. That's the only one thus far of note, but we're continuing to have those forces planned for future operations. So that's that. On the oil piece, it is a little bit too soon to determine exactly the impact of our strikes on these oil. I look at it on these oil facilities. I look at this oil. You know, it's attacking their industrial base. So I look at it as in boxing as body shots, right? You work the body in early rounds, and maybe you won't get a knockout from those early round body shots. But several rounds later, you'll see your enemy's weak. You'll see your opponent's knees begin to get weak. He'll lose some of the snap off of his jab, and now he's beginning to get set up for the knockout. So that's what this is. These are body shots that, while we might not see an immediate impact today based on these strikes against oil, because there's money in pipelines, there's oil already moving, there's a ripple effect there. It takes a while for it to catch up. But when it does catch up, we will see this enemy's knees weaken notably.
Just real quick to follow up, without getting into specifics, do you see that the new Syrian force, that group, it being reasonably small, being folded in somewhere else, or operating roughly where they are now for the time being, or what?
They'll continue to operate along the southern border area there. What they bring, as do all of these forces that we've trained, what they bring to the battlefield is arguably the most powerful and lethal weapon on the battlefield, and that's communications. These personnel have been trained and, more importantly, equipped with communications that can talk to us, that can talk to the coalition, that can bring in the devastating effects of our air power. So they'll continue to operate there along that border. They could potentially be folded in to other units that are operating along that border. But what they bring is that tremendous force multiplication factor of communications.
Colonel Warren, the Secretary yesterday mentioned an offer of the use of Apache helicopters and perhaps U.S. advisors operating a little closer with Iraqi units in and around Ramadi. Can you talk a little bit about what are the conditions that would exist for that to happen, and how the Iraqi government, whether or not they would seek such support?
Well, so the Secretary did announce these initiatives, and what's important is that it's got to be at the request of the Iraqi government, right? And I know the Secretary of Defense spoke a little bit about this just a few hours ago. So thus far, the Iraqi government, Prime Minister Ramadi, has not requested Apache support. He's not requested additional advise and assist capabilities. So it would be a case-by-case basis, right? If there is a specific mission or operation that would directly benefit from the presence of attack aviation, rotary wing attack aviation, then this is something that the Iraqis and we will discuss. So there, it's hard to kind of come up with a hypothetical kind of scenario. It's going to be case-by-case basis, and as opportunities arise, we're in daily discussions with our Iraqi partners, and if it appears that the situation is such that attack aviation, rotary wing attack aviation, helicopters, Apaches, would have a significant impact, then that's a discussion we'll have.
Just on a slightly other subject, in Ramadi, is there a good estimate of, or some kind of estimate for the civilians that remain behind, and are there indications that ISIS is doing what it can to prevent their departure from the city center?
Right. We don't have a good estimate of the size of the civilian population in Ramadi. It's a difficult number to come by. You know, we've worked on it and tried, but it is a hard number to come up against or to get resolution on. We have seen indications that ISIL is either actively preventing civilians from departing, or worse, waiting for the civilians to begin departing and then firing on them. Just 2 weeks ago, a little 9-year-old boy was shot in the stomach as he and his family were trying to flee. Fortunately, the Iraqi security forces were able to save his life. But yeah, the Iraqis have, or excuse me, the ISIL has made it clear to us through their actions that they intend to continue to hide behind the civilian population in an effort to try and reduce the effectiveness of our air power.
Hi, Colonel Warren. Bill Stewart here. Could you bring us up to date? After the Turks shot down the Russian fighter jet, Russian President Putin said that he kind of questioned the utility in sharing information with the coalition. I know there have been all these calls, deconfliction calls with the coalition. Can you bring us up to date about what is the kind of information that the Russians are sharing? How often are they sharing it with the coalition? And has that become a two-way street at this point? I mean, is there any information about coalition operations that is exchanged with them to perhaps deconflict, to say, if you're up, be advised that we're operating in the same space, or is there any kind of information about coalition operations that's being provided? Thank you.
We talk to the Russians every day, and what we do is we discuss ways to deconflict aircraft coming together. So it's altitude, it's speed, it's location and direction. So the Russians don't tell us what they're going to strike. We don't tell them what we're going to strike. All we do is talk to them about how we can ensure that our two sets of aircraft don't bump into each other in the air. It's important to note that no amount of coalition phone calls would have had any impact on that event, which was a Turkish sovereign event, right? That was not a part of the coalition operation.
To follow up then, so are you telling them that you're operating around Raqqa at this altitude, or are you telling them without giving them what the targets are you giving them geographic locations and altitudes of where you're operating?
I'm not going to get into that level of detail. Part of the memorandum of agreement prevents us from going into that level of detail. But what I'll tell you is that we exchange enough information to ensure that our planes don't bump into each other.
Gentleman in the mustache. I'm sorry, your name escapes me.
Colonel, this is Carl Osgood with Executive Intelligence Review. You said at the end of your opening statement that as you put more pressure on ISIS in Iraq and Syria, we should expect to see them try to establish themselves in other locations, which of course they are doing, as I think most people know. Does this mean we should expect more terrorist attacks outside of the region? Is there anything that you're doing in your campaign that will reduce that threat?
Yeah, we're killing terrorists. We're killing them every single day by the hundreds. So that's reducing the threat. I'm going to talk about what we're doing here, and it's taking down leadership networks. It's taking away the ability to fund terror operations, and it's killing terrorists. So that's the business that we're in here. Business has been very good, and we're going to continue to execute this mission.
Colonel Warren, it's Paul Shinkman. Just to follow up on Jim's question, do you have any more granularity on what kind of role ground troops could play in retaking Ramadi? Is it calling in airstrikes? Is it actually serving in any sort of combat role? Or, and then also whether there are any preparations in place now in the case that the Iraqi government actually asks for U.S. support?
If the Iraqi government asks for Apache helicopters and the mission is right, if we agree, then we'll use Apache helicopters. So that's all. I mean, the Apache helicopters are ready. So all we have to do is find an operation or a mission that they will be able to impact, and then agree with the Iraqis that it's the right time to use them. But that agreement hasn't come yet, right? So we have not yet agreed to use Apache helicopters in Iraq. What we have done is told the Iraqi government that if they would like us to, we're willing to. So.
Yesterday that he would be open to Apache helicopters and ground troops. I think he said ground advisors. And I'm trying to get some more detail on that second point there, what that force could look like.
Well, it's purely speculative, right? I mean, we haven't agreed to anything yet. So it could look like anything. But right now, it doesn't look like anything because it doesn't exist yet.
And then just to follow up on the video, can you say what the Iraqi tanks were actually firing at? Were there vehicles that were approaching or fighting positions, or any more detail on that?
Yeah, there was. We couldn't see from that piece of video, but based on our discussions and reporting, there was enemy activity down both of those roads. Don't know exactly what the battle damage assessment was from those tank shots, but the important thing is that they were providing protection to the armored bulldozers that were erecting berms that would then protect the tanks. So this is a great example of this combined arms operation. Tanks providing security for bulldozers, while bulldozers erect berms, which in turn provide security for the tanks. So that's combined arms operations.
Last call here.
Just follow up to Paul's question, Colonel. You saying that there is no request by the Prime Minister Abadi about the Apaches and other U.S. elements to help the Ramadi operation. But Secretary just yesterday and also today said that the Ramadi operation is disappointingly slow. So while it's disappointingly slow, why is that the case that the Iraqi government does not ask or request for U.S. help out over there?
The Secretary said it was frustratingly slow. Not disappointing, frustrating. And you just asked me why the Iraqi government hasn't asked for Apaches, and that's obviously not a question I'm equipped to answer. I don't represent the Iraqi government.
Okay. Louis just walked in and has one last one here. Go ahead.
Colonel, there's been some back and forth about that airstrike near Deir ez-Zor that the Syrians claimed had led to Syrian casualties caused by U.S. Air Force, by U.S. aircraft. The Russian Defense Ministry spokesman said yesterday that though there were no American aircraft in that vicinity, that there were apparently two sets of coalition aircraft. I guess the inference there being that maybe they had something to do with that. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, there were no coalition aircraft in that area when when those soldiers were killed. And how do we know this? Several ways. Number one, from when the initial reporting came out that Syrian soldiers were killed, there were no coalition aircraft anywhere near that area. About an hour later, an hour after the initial reports came out, coalition aircraft conducted a strike about 60 miles away, 59 maybe it was. So, those are the facts, plain and simple. This coalition had nothing to do with those Syrian personnel being killed, period.
Just clarifying that, so there were no any kind of coalition aircraft even in that vicinity at all, even before or after this strike, correct?
There were no coalition aircraft in that vicinity before, during, or after the initial reports came out that those Syrian soldiers were killed. An hour after those reports came out, coalition aircraft conducted a strike approximately 60 miles south and east of where those soldiers died, those Syrian soldiers died.
All right, anything else?
Thank you, everybody.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.